Guys, this small video, we've taken an excerpt, taken a slightly dense paragraph. We'll discuss a couple of critical reasoning questions based on that paragraph. As you would know, critical reasoning is the bread and butter for 99% pilots, right? So without further ado, what I will do is I will give you one look at the paragraph. Okay, you can pause the video here, read the paragraph. This is question number 1, okay? And this is question number 2. So this is question number 2. So you can actually pause the video, solve it. My suggestion, ideally, is this should not be taking, this entire exercise should not be taking more than 5 to 6 minutes. 5 minutes would be ideal. The paragraph is small, but I'm guessing you're still preparing for, started preparing not too far back. But otherwise, by come time period, right? Come the time around November or December. This is something you should be 2 questions, 2 minutes each. The paragraph should not take you more than a minute read. So 5 minutes is the maximum you should push to. Probably take 6 minutes or whatever now. Anyways, let's look at the paragraph. The more Plato thinks of it, the more astounded he is at the folly of leaving to mob caprice and gullibility the selection of political officials. Okay, the first mistake guard readers would do is just not stop here and continue reading. Okay, we'll have to learn, watch out for structures like these. Okay, sentence structures like this. The more X happens, the more Y happens. That's a classic sentence structure. So whenever you see that, you have to mentally divide it into 2 parts. The more Plato thinks of it, the more someone thinks of it, the more the more someone thinks of it, the more something happens. Okay, what happens? The more astounded he is. So this is idea number 1. Stop here. The more Plato thinks of it, the more surprised he is. We still don't know what he's thinking of. So this is just setting the tone for the paragraph. So we don't have to worry about it. You have to just understand. It is important sometimes to see where the sentence is going rather than trying to read the entire thing at one shot. So the more Plato thinks of it, the more surprised he is. You don't know what it is, but you know that we're going to read something that Plato is thinking about and to surprise them. Then focus on the next sentence, which is the main idea, right? He's surprised at the folly of leaving to mob caprice and gullibility the selection of political officials. This is like the older style of classical style of writing where you exchange the phrases. The ideal contemporary way of writing it is the folly of selection of political officials, the folly of leaving the selection of political officials to mob caprice and gullibility. But this is the classic way of writing, where this part comes first. The more drama, more rhetoric, the more the folly, the mistake of leaving to XYZ, the function of whatever. At the end of the day, the idea is the same. So, what is the inherent suggestion here? That Plato calls it a mistake. Okay, so you automatically understand that Plato does not like selection of political officials by the mobs or the masses. That's why he's saying mob. So caprice and gullibility are 2 very important words you might want to make. So whenever you encounter interesting words like these, make sure you save them somewhere. Okay. So caprice is whims, moods, up and down. Mob, whims and fancy, right? That's how it's all politics is. This guy wins one day, that guy wins one day. Gullibility is how easily the mob can be misled. Okay. So that is what by demagogues particularly. Anyway, so this is idea number 2. The more Plato thinks of it, the more he's surprised by the fact that mobs are allowed, their moods are allowed to dictate the selection of political. So you know that Plato doesn't like that. Okay, or rather Plato is a little anti-democracy. We want to just summarize it in a bit. Not to speak of leaving it. Not to speak of means something extra. Okay, this is like not to speak of means okay. This is another factor. It's an idiomatic expression, right? You have to watch out for idiomatic expressions like this. Because there's no way to literally translate what not to speak of means. It's just the way of writing. If you're a good reader, you'll understand. Otherwise, you won't understand. Not to speak of means, okay, there's another parameter. Not to speak of, leaving it to those shady and well-serving. Shady is a negative word. So, you know that the Plato is not a big fan of these strategists, well-serving strategists who pull the oligarchic wires behind the democratic stage. Okay, so these guys are also having influence. Plato doesn't like that either. Massive sentence. Very complicated sentence. That's why you need to learn to break it into 3 parts. What is oligarchy? Archy means rule. Oligarchy is a few select people have the power. Okay, so when a bunch of people call all the shots in a country, you call them oligarchs. Olden times, they were literally people who held power. Okay, in the Senate or whatever it is. Tsar's court or in Roman court or whatever. These days, you also use oligarchs for rich businessmen, okay, because they have a lot of power in the way things run the country. So oligarchic wires behind the democratic state. So this is one idea. Done. Plato complains that whereas in simple matters, so this is double dash, right? So this is extra. Whereas in simple matters, we think only a specially trained person will serve our purpose. Again, it's important, sentence structure. Whenever there's whereas, you know, there'll be two parts. Whereas in simple matters, we think only a specially trained person will serve our purpose. In politics, we presume that everyone who knows how to get votes knows how to administer city or state. Pretty self-explanatory, right? Plato is complaining that even for stitching a shoe, you go to a specialist, but for politics, we don't go to a specialist. Meaning that Plato thinks that the guys who are selected for the political offices are actually not specialists. So Plato is looking for some kind of a specialist. When we are ill, we call for a trained physician whose degree is a guarantee of specific preparation and technical competence. We do not ask for the handsomest physician or the most eloquent one. You have to stop here and ask. Okay, these are the kind of pieces where good readers automatically understand. But if you are the average reader, with your reading practice, you try to learn all this stuff. Okay. Look at the attributes which are important for Plato. Things like these are important to understand the author. Okay, the author is obviously Kant. He wrote about Plato in this book Logic. What is Plato's logic of thinking? Degree is more important than looks, okay, or eloquence. That is Plato's understanding. So author is saying we ask for degree rather than give it to the good-looking guy or the eloquent guy. Meaning, Plato says for any profession, it's not the looks or the fluency that is important. These are underlying currents of information that you need to pick up because the author is not mentioning it directly to you, but you can understand it from the idea. Well then, when the whole state is ill, should we not look for the service and guidance of the wisest and the best? The unstated thing is rather than picking somebody, who knows how to get votes, Okay. So Plato wants someone with the degree for administration or with the wisdom, not necessarily exactly degree, but the know-how of how to administer. That guy should be picked rather than somebody who's just popular, eloquent and good-looking. So also underlying assumption is politicians who are generally more good-looking and more eloquent tend to win votes. Underlying assumption again, because those are the two examples highlighted. Okay, I hope the paragraph makes sense to you. Let's look at the questions now. Plato makes which of the following assumptions in his political beliefs? Before you answer, before you go down to the options which are designed to confuse you, it's always a good idea. When you know what the question is asking, frame the answer first, then you go to the options. Okay. So what is the assumption in Plato's political belief? First, ask yourself, what was Plato's political belief? Plato's political belief is that the common man should not be selecting, political officials. But did he say that directly? No. What is his point? He's like their mood swing should not determine. So what should determine? The wisdom of the politicians should determine. Okay. So Plato is saying it should not be left to the gullibility of the people. Rather, their degree or their education or their learning should be important. So what is the underlying assumption? Underlying assumption is who they vote for don't have these qualities, the degree and the wisdom or whatever. So in other words, Plato is saying that these guys don't know how to pick educated, wise politicians. They are gullible. That's the assumption. Look at the options now. Politicians elected by the public are unfit for administration. Close. Politicians are more well-serving than their wise. Now, if you remember the paragraph, the well-serving oligarchs are the strategists, not the politicians, isn't it? So you do not have to worry about this particular option. You can eliminate this option first go itself if this goes out. The masses cannot identify individuals best suited to political administration. Close. So we'll keep it aside. So A and C will get into the habit of presuming you have to go 2 rounds at the options. Don't try to find the answer in the very first round. Because then let's say you liked A, you're like, okay, A is the answer. You've figured out in your head. Then the moment you see C, you will not appreciate it as close. You will just say A was my answer. You'll try to justify how C is wrong. You never do that. So separate out the options based on what's easy to eliminate and what's not easy to eliminate. Anything that's not easy to eliminate goes into round 2. Sometimes it could be all 4 options, sometimes it could be 3 options, sometimes it could be 2 options. In fact, if all 4 options are close and they're not easy to eliminate, it gives you a very good chance to leave the question and move on. Okay? You see that all 4 options are pretty close, why would you waste another 2 minutes trying to get done? So this is like one good filter. In 30 seconds, if you're able to eliminate 2 options and you know A or C or whatever, D or B or whatever is the answer, 2 close ones, then you could probably spend another 30 seconds. Okay, be a little street smart about these kind of things. Next, political officials should be selected based on qualifications and not based on elections. Okay. Now, political officials should be selected based on qualifications and not based on elections is also pretty close. Makes sense? But so when you're comparing A, C, and D, right? Because B is the only one that pretty much goes out very easily. All 3 are pretty decent options. Okay, it's not something. None of them are actually bad. There's a reason why I made them so close. I'll tell you why. It's important to understand what is the meaning of an assumption. An assumption is something that is important to the final argument made by the author. Point number 1. Point number 2, the assumption is information that the author has not given you directly. That's point number 2. Make sense? Both these characteristics are important for assumptions. And what is the thumb rule for spotting an assumption? If the statement is false, your argument falls apart. So one way of going about it is ask, if A is wrong, will the argument go wrong? And if A is true, will the argument be true? Yes, then A has a very good chance of being an assumption. Politicians elected by the public are unfit for administration. Okay. Now, is what Plato seems to be saying, right? Politicians elected by the public are unfit for administration. But if you go a little deeper, there is a dramatic, exaggerated word called unfit. Okay. What is this guy saying? This guy is saying he's surprised that the selection of political whatever rulers, let me look at the exact word, political officials, he says, isn't it? Political officials, surprise is left to the whims of the public, meaning it's not that public is always wrong. The surprise that it's left to them. Politicians first of all are not elected by the public, political officials, so there comes mistake number 1. The bigger thing is politicians elected by the public are unfit for administration, not something that Plato is saying. It's very surprising, it's left to them. They may do a good job sometimes, they may do a bad job sometimes, mostly a bad job. But unfit means 100% wrong. That's not the assumption. That's not even an inference. It's too far-fetched from the paragraph. Okay? So you have to be able to sift options like these, which give you 1 or 2 exaggerated words, okay? Extreme exaggerations, they're called. You look at that kind of stuff, you will know, okay, that this is not something I can justify. Boils down to C and D. Masses cannot identify. Now, you cannot look at masses and say, hey, I did not see this word, therefore it's an alien term, I'll eliminate. Masses, mob, similar synonyms. Even if the public word was there, then also it's a synonym. So watch out for synonyms. Don't just see a new word and eliminate it. Okay, that's like pretty amateurish mistake. The masses cannot identify individuals best suited for political administration. Okay, which if it is true, the paragraph will be true. Which if it's false, the paragraph will be false. So pretty good candidate. Political officials should be selected. Now, if you notice, if you start cancelling out individuals best suited for political administration, political officials should be selected. Okay, these two pretty much cancels out. Right. So if you're comparing C and D, masses cannot identify what's there in C. Here, there is no talk about masses. It says based on qualifications and not based on elections. Now, the point is that elections by whom is also important. Plato's whole argument is centered around people. That's problem number 1 with B. Let's say you understand or you assume, and not wrongly so, you say that elections means at the end of the people come into the picture. Right. Elections or voting by public. Then is R, C, and D the same? Political officials should be selected based on qualifications. Qualification is an exaggeration again, right? Degree, wisdom, okay. All of, if you notice what did Plato say? Plato did not just say qualifications, it said service. Look for the service and guidance of whom the wisest and the best. Wise and best on the basis of what? Probably the degree, probably the qualification, probably their track record. We don't know what it is, isn't it? So saying directly that it's the qualification that is important, slightly problematic. More so because we have this option, right? Now, what is the difference between C and D? C says masses cannot identify individuals best suited for political, which is what Plato is saying. It's surprised by it. Surprised by it because he thinks they are not good at identifying. D is talking about how they should be. That again, one other way of identifying the difference between C and D is the tone of the paragraph. The tone of the paragraph is not more about how they should be selected, which is an inference that comes towards the end. Rather, he's surprised by how they are being selected. Isn't it? That's the other difference. So between C and D, the answer is C. If you pick D, the question that you should be asking yourself is, okay, it's not a bad choice. That means you actually put in some thought, okay? I'm not disappointed in you or whatever. But if you pick D, you have to ask yourself this question: how did I eliminate C? There's no way on the planet you could have eliminated C unless you were going by confirmation bias. You like D, and the last line of the paragraph leaves an imprint in your head. Okay, degree and qualification and all that, you make the connection. But qualification is hard to justify when you're eliminating option C. Okay, so you have to ask yourself: did I really eliminate option C, or did I just pick D because I like D? Because if you went that way, then you don't deserve to get the marks. So it's always important to eliminate the closest wrong answer before you pick your answer. Does that make sense? So difference between C and D, again, please don't leave a comment under the video saying, hey, can you please explain why not C or D? I'm telling you very clearly what's the difference between C and D. Watch the video again. If you, I mean, as much as you hate my voice or my face, have to watch the video once or twice or thrice as long as it takes to get the exact point. Okay, don't make me do your job. At the end of the day, it's you who's going to mint money in 3-4 years, right? So, what's the difference between C and D? The first problem is qualifications, okay? And second problem is in terms of tone. The assumption is that masses can't select. The assumption is not that they should. D is probably the inference. Okay, at the end of the paragraph, you can ask, okay, so dear Plato, tell me what else should we do? Select them on the basis of the qualification. It's an inference. It comes after the paragraph. C is important for the argument made in the paragraph. Only if C is true can Plato write that, make that argument in the first place. That's the difference between assumption and inference. What is important for the argument to be made is assumption. What comes at the end of the argument, or what else can we figure out based on the argument, that's the inference. Okay, what else can you infer? Okay, so the answer to this question is C. Let's look at the next question. Plato's argument is weakened by which of the following? Now, you know what is Plato's argument. It's against the public, against voting, against democracy. A little bit subtly, you just need to know the tone. So you're looking for something that overturns it. So in favor of the public, in favor of the voting, in favor of democracy. Okay, all of that. So Plato's argument is weakened by which of the following? Politicians win votes on the basis of their administrative track record. This is weakening the argument, right? Straight away, not so difficult to spot. Because he said people should be political officials should be selected on the basis of how well they can administrate, rather than how they can win votes. But if they're winning votes on the basis of their administrative track record, then it's a good thing, right? That means that the masses are doing a very good job, which means Plato is wrong, isn't it? So Plato's argument is weakened. Weakened by this particular statement for sure of our job done. Good administration is seldom rewarded by the masses. Good administration is never rewarded by the masses. Is actually subtly strengthening Plato's argument by saying that masses do not know how to pick good administrators. So we don't have to worry about this particular option, isn't it? In the first go itself, we can keep that aside. Popular politicians can also be good administrators. This is the tricky option. If you are not a well-read person, okay, this feels tricky. You have to understand a little bit. Popular politicians can also be good administrators. Also has the underlying implication that popular politicians may not be good administrators also. So sentences like these mean nothing. They should not actually trouble you, because it does not say all popular politicians are good administrators. It says popular politicians can also be good administrators. Can also be means sometimes, which means sometimes popular politicians are not good administrators, which is what Plato is talking about. So C does not give you this side or that side, just makes a bullcrap statement basically, isn't it? So watch out for options like this. They should not eat up too much of your time. They eat up your time only if you are making assumptions in your head. You're like, popular politicians can be good administrators, but Plato is saying that they should not be selected on the basis of popularity. They should be selected on the basis of track record. So C is a very good answer. I'll pick it. Watch out, be a little careful, because it doesn't tell you popular politicians are always good administrators. That's why those scope defining words are very important. Always, all, every. It doesn't say always good administrators. They can be. Okay, even if 10% of popular politicians are good administrators, C is still true. But it's actually strengthening Plato's argument if such a small percentage of popular politicians are good administrators. Okay, many politicians can learn on the job. Fair enough, let them learn, but that's not Plato's point. Plato's point is not that they can't learn on the job. Plato's point is why select. It's like saying make somebody a doctor, then that fellow will automatically learn what he's going to learn in MBBS. So you're not going to do something like that, isn't it? So that's not Plato's argument. Plato's argument is pick somebody who already knows how to do the job. Don't expect people to learn on the job. Makes sense? So D is not so difficult to eliminate. The answer to this particular question, therefore, will be question 8. Okay, I hope the small exercise proved helpful to you. If it did, please share with your friends and stuff. Okay, thanks a lot. Until next time, peace out.